Hello and welcome back to Let the Credits Roll podcast with me, Liam, and the film connoisseur that we all love, Rob. You
Hello
may have
there.
noticed. Wait, what was that?
I said hello there.
Oh, it threw me up there. um, you may have noticed in that little introduction that the name of the podcast has changed to Let the Credits Roll, as somehow before we started this, we missed the fact there's not only one, but quite a few podcasts with the name Roll the Credits, and one has actually quite like 100+ episodes. And we thought, as much as it's a stereotypical name, we'd like to have our own name and not have the same name as someone else. And it just by chance, one of the names when we were brainstorming names, Let the Credits Roll was one of the first ones that came up anyway. We just sort of picked it, like shortened it a bit because we thought maybe it needed to be shorter. But we've gone back, Let the Credits Roll. So hopefully you like it. Hopefully it's not too long for you and Rob's brain can pay attention to it for long enough for the extra syllable.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you may have seen that some of the artwork and stuff's changed. A couple of these earlier episodes that we've made, we've decided to just not edit it, just because, I mean, to be honest, it's more work for me, and it's not really that much of an issue. So we're just going to
yeah.
keep it as it is. But from now on, we will be addressing it as the credits roll.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We do let the credits roll.
Yeah.
And just then discuss it. And Rob, what is the film that we let the credits roll?
So
Blah,
yeah.
blah, blah.
So today, we're going to be discussing Scarface, which, again, I find myself keep saying this. I can't believe that Liam, at this point, had not watched this film, despite the fact it's iconic and
Yep,
he knows aspects of the film. He knows the
yep.
quotes. He's seen the gifs and whatever else. He's played Vice City, but he's never actually seen the film. So yeah, this was his first time watching the grand epic that is Brian De Palma's Scarface.
Yeah, it's actually one of the films I sort of put on the list of films I want us to cover because I knew he had seen it and I've been so desperate to watch it. And for whatever reason, I just never got around to it. I don't know why. It's probably the most iconic films ever and one of the most iconic scenes ever and quotes ever. And somehow I've missed it. So I've been really excited to watch this. And, on the theme, I've seen The Godfathers, I haven't seen Goodfellas, and I hadn't seen Scarface. And I wanted this podcast to be another excuse for me to finally get those crossed off the bucket list and enjoy them. So we decided to kick off with the mobster films, first with Scarface, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think it was a good choice to start off with, just because it's the most wildest one out of the lot. I would say it's the most cartoonish one for sure.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I
So
because I haven't seen Godfather or Goodfellas, I can't compare them. I could,
yeah,
when we find Godfather or Goodfellas, maybe I'll reference back to these. But Scarface has the opportunity just to impress me in its own light.
so what would your one sentence review be for this one then, Liam?
Well, as always, it's meant to be a one sentence review, and it never really is. It's just sort of
It's true.
say a line, a sentence that hits me in the moment at the time. And as you may have seen in one of our shorts recently, I mentioned my love for Rush Hour, and just watching through this film, I could not get just one line from Rush Hour out of my head, and that was that greed will imprison us all, and that sort of just sums the feeling of the film to me, and that's what I've decided to say in my one
Well,
sentence.
it's very philosophical, I must say, even if it is from Russia.
Well, I think
Yeah,
Rush Hour quotes something else, to be honest, but yeah.
probably. It seems a bit
Well,
highbrow for Rush Hour, to be
it's
fair.
like it's one of those old Chinese or something fables or something that has a moral to
Oh
the story,
yeah,
and it's the
yeah.
moral of the story. But yeah, Go on. What's
Uh,
your one sentence? I think we need to change it from one sentence review to just one sentence.
I would say this film is just a wild representation of the American dream.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Especially for its time.
absolutely. Like, it's just it is just the American dream. That's simply what I watch it. And I just think like the American dream. That's all I think of when I watch
The
it.
American dream, if you're going down the criminal route, at least. Okay, not everyone's American dream is
Uh,
is going and starting a mob family, but
yeah, but like,
again,
just like when I watch it, I just think like that's all. Just the American dream. That's all I think of. Like, that is
yeah, that's
like
the same with
that.
me. Like that line from Rush Hour 2 just would not leave my head from watching the film, and the American dream is what just stays in your mind.
Exactly. Like, just I can't think of anything more fitting than that. The American dream.
All right, well there you go. There's our one sentence because I wouldn't say either of them are reviews. So I'm renaming the whole section right now. It's our one sentence. And
Well, yeah.
that's
I
it
mean,
because it's as
yeah,
stupid as a
yeah,
name as the shit we come out with.
yeah. That's true. That is true.
Actually, what we should do, if anyone ever actually listens to this, we need a place where people can comment and say back. But what is your one sentence? It could be a review, it could be a synopsis, it could just be something that comes to your mind. What is your
Yeah,
one
we've got
sentence?
obviously got a Twitter page up, and we've got these will be going out on
Yes.
YouTube. So like, feel free to throw a comment at us, like on either
Yeah.
one, and
Tweet us. Maybe we'll retweet them, cause some discussion. And yeah, let's
absolutely.
let's let's get that going because I want to see
And
what
you can
things pop to people's
guarantee
minds.
if you speak to us, you'll get a reply. Because most of the
Oh
time
yeah,
I have nothing else going on. When I'm at work, I'll reply to every single one of you. I'll have a chat with you. Don't worry about it. 2 o'clock in the morning.
oh yeah,
You
definitely.
you tweet me and say that was a great podcast, but I thought your take was shit. We'll have an hour discussion. That's fine. I'm fine
I'm
with that.
expecting a lot of people to disagree with what I say. I'm probably going to upset a lot of film connoisseurs, a lot of film fanatics.
We will absolutely engage with you. Just you say the word.
And that's what makes it more fun. Like this is just that's
Yeah,
it. It's just we just want to have fun.
exactly. So on
But
that note, yeah.
yeah, cool.
I was just gonna say, like, why is this film so iconic, Liam? Like for me, I've seen it since I was young. But for you, like you say, you've longed to watch this. You specifically requested that we do this as part of
Yep.
this podcast. And why is why have you always wanted? Like, what has made it so iconic in your mind that you specifically had to have like us do this? Like, what's kept it going for you?
Well, like the whole setting, like the whole mobster gangs thing. I love that whole genre and setting. Like I love sci-fi. I love that. Like Sopranos is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. But and if you love this genre, I feel like I shouldn't be able to say I love it and love the setting when I haven't seen Scarface, Goodfellas, and Godfather. But I do love it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
it
like
appeals to me the most, maybe is what I should say, and maybe I can say it's my favorite once I've actually watched the most iconic films of the genre. Um,
yeah,
but
fair
yeah,
enough.
but I think the reason why I thought it was iconic before I watched it is the same now after I watched it, and that's just Al Pacino's performance. Like
Oh yeah, like
he's the perfect person to play that character exactly how he did. It's just oh, there's a lot of times in films, even films I like, even films I don't, where I lose a little bit of immersion. The actor doesn't quite feel the character, or something doesn't connect right. Whereas, like, if that, I could forget that was an actor at all. He's just so perfect for the role, and just the way he delivers those lines and the iconic "say hello to my little friend" and just
yeah, I think like with Al Pacino as well, like the over the top nature of the performance just fits the vibe of
Yes.
the film so well. Like, I mean, because obviously Al Pacino's not Cuban at all, and it's like a completely
Yeah.
like exaggerated accent, but it just works with the film. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
everything, like his zany, over the top, like larger than life performance, like the way the direction of the film and everything is, it's just if it you for me, like when I watch this, and I'm bringing in like a game at this point, but you can absolutely see why the people who made GTA thought we're gonna make an 80s film and just basically remake Scarface.
Yeah, that's what I was almost upset in a way that I watched I played GTA Vice City before watching this film, because every scene, every something happens, I went, that makes me think so much of GTA Vice City. Oh, that's like GTA Vice City. That's like GTA Vice City. And it's no, it's not. Vice City is like this film. Clearly, when they sat down and made that game, they were like, yeah, we want Scarface.
Yeah,
Um,
it's literally like
and for good reason.
Scarface the game, and then
Yeah.
later on they did actually make a Scarface game. So
But yeah, it's just that his performance is, and as you said, it's over the top, and the way he delivers those over the top lines, like, just you want to fuck with me? I'm Tony Montana. And
yeah,
it's just, the language used, and oh, it's brilliant. And yeah, it's iconic purely because of him. I don't think if anyone else played that role, it would work. The only like times I think of, other actors that could be so iconic in a role they play, like it feels similar to like a Robert De Niro type thing, though I don't think he could play this character like Tony Banner,
nah, like,
as Al Pacino does, but
it's because
that sort of level of iconicness.
see, Robert De Niro has like an air of class when he plays these like
Yes,
mafia type roles, whereas
that's
Al
it.
Pacino really nails like the sleazy aspect of the
Yes, they've
character.
got both of their own bits covered. They don't cross each other's path.
Yeah,
They're
like
much
De
their own
Niro's
type
like
of
the
mob boss.
traditionalist mafia,
Yeah,
and Al Pacino's just like full-on drug dealer. Like,
the
you know
same
what I
level of
mean?
iconicness, but very much their own way of doing it, like
Yeah,
of
definitely,
delivering it.
absolutely.
And yeah,
And
Al Pacino is Tony
it will
Montana,
be
and Tony Montana
interesting.
is Al Pacino.
It will be interesting when we watch The Godfather, actually, because obviously, I don't know if you'd realize this, but Al Pacino is like the main character in The Godfather as well. So
Yeah,
we're going to be
that's why.
watching
Yeah, that's why I'm really looking
two
forward to it.
completely different performances from the same actor, and it'll be interesting to see which one you think suits him better.
Yeah, yep. That's another thing I'm looking forward to, and that's what this podcast is going to miss, is me be able to reflect on the two and the actors' performances and the differences. But this film is so iconic, so loud, so
It's in your face all the
extreme.
time, like
Yeah,
it's just like there's always like we were talking a bit before, like we started where you were saying like, well, because we were talking about what could possibly be like a fault of the film, and I said possibly like the length, and you said like everything in the film like has a purpose, has a reason,
yes,
and
I
it's like
really feel it does.
yeah,
Like, even when I was watching it, I felt like this bit's dragging out a bit, I think. But then I was like, no, it's not. It's the perfect metaphor for Tony Montana's character. Like, maybe the film slightly feels like it's dragging out, but that's what I think it slightly feels like for him. Like, he's that hunger and fight to get to the
yeah, it
top of the
hits like a
American dream.
speed bump in his life, sort of
And then
thing.
he sort of realized, yeah, and then I think he sort of realizes, what was it all for? He's rich and he's got everything, but now what? And his wife
Yeah,
is just, on drugs, and
why
he
fucking
can't
hates
have a
him.
kid, and yeah, like that moment in the film where maybe you feel it's dragging out, it hits perfectly with that moment, that it syncs up so well. But yeah, every part of that
Absolutely.
film is needed because it shows the journey of the character. I don't think it's an A to B to from, it's, I don't think it's all about greed, just him trying to grab everything, and at the end the greed kills him. But it's like an A to B to C to D to E. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like that brings us on to my next point. Really, is like how, like, say, the American Dream and this film, how they sort of intertwine in like the 80s specifically.
mm,
Like, obviously. with the whole immigrants coming over. They're like,
Yeah,
I want to live the big life like the Americans do, and this film very much, I think, is all about, like I say, the American dream, because that's what I mean. That is what the film's about, right? He comes over
yeah,
from Cuba. He's had like a shit time. Like he's come over and he's working in that fucking hot dog van or whatever it is. And he's right across from the nightclub, and he sees them all in the fancy cars and suits.
yeah.
And he's like, every night after night, he's watching that, and he's like, I want that. And the whole film from that point on is him getting what he wants in life.
But even just like in the face of it at the beginning, like I can't remember exactly when, but he says in the film, like prison in America is better than life in Cuba. Like that's the
Yeah,
American
yeah,
dream. Even at its worst, it's still so much better than what he had. Um, yeah, but yeah, his character is fueled by why can't I have that? Why can't I have that?
yeah. And then,
And
like you say, when he has everything, he realizes he's got nothing.
yeah, that's it. It sort of gets to the point where he can't get much more. His wife, really, is she in love with him? Meh,
I mean,
not
she's just a
really.
trophy, isn't she? Like he
She's
basically
just a trophy. She
takes
just
it
wants the
from the other guy,
drugs.
Frank.
Yeah, and the more that he sort of loses touch with himself and that road and stagnates
He loses
before
touch
going
with
to the
like his
drugs, and yeah,
real, like his roots, like Manny's best
and
friend.
why he wanted it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then he sort of turns to the drugs, and
yeah, with the iconic
yeah,
fucking puts his face in the powder.
oh, fucking brilliant that was, and like, and the perfect time to do it. Yeah, like and earlier him in the film would have seen the attack coming, seen and had it all planned out, had everything planned,
Yeah,
but the
but
greed,
it
partly
blinds
the
him.
greed, partly the life. Yeah, he's just blinded, and how it breaks him down.
And
But
obviously he gets to the point at the end where he thinks he's untouchable. Like he fucks that guy over, and he's
yeah,
like, "Yeah, you're gonna take it because I'm Tony Montana. You're gonna get fucked by me, and you're not gonna have any issue with it." But in reality, like he's lining people up to come raid the house anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. It just shows that the lessons of being in the business is don't underestimate the other guy's greed, which is just brilliant. Who's it saying to, and sort of ends up being his downfall as well. And then don't get high on your own supply. Both rules broken. But
Yeah,
then,
definitely.
yeah, but I don't,
I
yeah,
get
but
like
then,
everything he works towards at the beginning of like the first half of the film, he just completely disregards, and that is his downfall, basically, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, exactly. It does it so well, and every scene in it, even if they feel like it could maybe, and some of those scenes might have not needed to be in there, but it shows the journey so much better being like A B to C to D rather than just an A to B. You really get to get all of the factors that contributed to him getting into that position as him. It's not just as easy as greed. There's so much more to it. Um, so yeah, perfect film.
So what's your favorite part of the film then? Like if you had to name like one scene or one theme or anything, like what?
So I find that really, and we've already talked about it, my favourite thing is Al Pacino's performance and just the lines and the way he acts, and he doesn't give a crap, and he just does it, and the way everything he says it could be like a one line, and it's witty and it's funny and it's so good. But we've already sort of spoke about that. So one thing that I was really surprised by, it's slightly different idea, and I just enjoyed it at the film. It made me laugh every time. Is whenever another person or another character was sort of getting close to his sister, it turned into like that horror film moment where the music starts playing and
Yeah,
he's staring, and it like you could cut those moments out and like put them into another horror film. It,
yeah,
it was it
definitely.
was it was so funny. It felt like it's like some Kubrick thing, or like just everything that
You
happens.
could
You're like,
like you
is
could
he going to
stick that into
explode
like
now?
like Psycho or something.
Yeah, you feel like if you could literally just take those scenes out, plug them into another film, and like he ends up murdering all those people every time he does it. Like it's so like you could come up with it's just the music is perfect, and yeah, and I remember you saying Like, is it this time that he's going to kick off? Is it this time he's going to kick off? You're
Yeah,
waiting
because it
for it, and
keeps
you're
you on
waiting for
edge.
it. Yeah, you don't know when it's going to happen. It's
Like you're
yeah,
watching it and you hear that music go and you're watching like the awkwardness and whatever's going on in the scene play out with the music, and you're just
yeah,
thinking like, is this the one where it's gonna blow? And then it will sort
yeah,
of keep you on the edge, and then it won't be that one, but you'll know like
yeah,
the bubble under the surface is slowly getting bigger. Like,
yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. There's so many things that are like under the surface. There's so many small things that happen in the film that add to the outcome, and all of those little things are just as important as the other. But and I don't think, yeah, a lot. Whenever you see this film, you talk about the film. Everyone just talk about like, oh, it's just greed, and how greed ends him. But it's so much more than that. But yeah, that just the music is put. The music of the film, the soundtrack is amazing the whole way through for all of it.
oh yeah,
But
definitely, the soundtrack's
it
fantastic.
just really hit how it really did feel like a horror film, and it felt like an 80s horror film as well. Like it wasn't just like horror; it was just as 80s horror feeling vibe I got from that as I did from the rest of the film.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
weirdly, other than Al Pacino's, just his delivery and performance just is what makes the film so great. I loved that. I wasn't expecting it. It was something that I could have known was in the film, and it just hit me out of the blue, and I loved it. But what about you then? What's your favourite part?
My favorite part, my favorite part really, and we're gonna get technical, but I think like
Ooh,
uh, like the cinematography and like the way it's shot is like that everything's like really vibrant and like it's
yeah,
you can just imagine like when you watch this like it really is a snapshot of 80s Miami. Like even
yeah,
though I've never been to Miami and I wasn't alive in the 80s, I just know that this is like a perfect representation of like that sleazy aspect of like 80s Miami. And
hmm,
I think like the direction of the film and like it's kind of brings in Al Pacino as well, but the way that Brian De Palma, the director, gets that performance out of Al Pacino and like sets the tone and obviously decides the music and whatnot for the horror scenes. Just uh, I couldn't think that this film could be improved by having someone else direct it. There are some films that I've seen in my life where I thought like it was good, but I wonder if this would have been better in like so whoever else's hands that I was thinking at the time.
yeah,
But when I watch Scarface, I think like it's just perfect. And I've seen a couple of other Brian De Palma films. I couldn't quite off the top of my head name them, but he sort of nails the vibe in every film that I've seen him make. And like I say, I just think he makes the film just as much as Al Pacino.
yeah. That's it. I think that's what makes an iconic film is, and I don't know if it just it ends up being luck at the end of the day, but you just get the perfect people for the film, and yeah, it was perfect. It was great.
Yeah, I'm just looking through what else Brian De Palma did. He did the original Carrie movie, which is again, I think, a
Yeah.
fantastic film. What else has he done? Like he did the first Mission Impossible, again, one of my
Oh, did he?
favorites. Yep. Um,
Hmm.
Carlito's Way, which I have actually not seen and you've not seen, but
No.
is another
We'll have to
like
maybe do
gangster
that one
one.
day.
My mum, like that's one of her favorites. So when we get to that one, we'll bring mum back for another review.
Yeah.
What else has he done? So yeah, he did Carrie. Um, yeah, so he did Carrie, and then he obviously went on to Scarface a couple of years later. Did the Untouchables, which is another gangster one, which is meant to be really good. But I've not seen. I think that was even
Hmm.
got Sean Connery in.
All
So
right.
yeah, he's got a bit of pedigree about him, Brian De Palma, and I think it comes through when you watch Scarface, when you can tell.
Oh yeah. Him and Al Pacino in that film, they were perfect for each other.
Yeah, definitely. So it brings us on actually to an aspect that we both agreed actually when we were talking about this, like what didn't we like? And since you brought up the idea, the every time someone's fucking with his sister, he gets the horror music on. We both agreed that like, because it is obviously like an incestual like theme in the movie where he's like obsessed with his sister. Uh, I don't think it really is necessary to the film, but then I feel like they'd have to have another reason for him to maybe have the psycho moments. So would it work if they changed it up? I don't know. But
But
what do you
see,
think?
that's it. I disagree with you. Like, yeah, I found the bit where it got like well, not hinted, it shoved an ancestral view into your face. But until she was in his house saying, "Oh, come on, then you want me, fucking all this and that," I never once thought until that point it was an ancestral thing, or he wanted her in that way. I just thought it was about power, control, and like genuine love and care for his sister, and he just knows that everyone else is
See,
shit. That
see,
he wants to make sure she doesn't have anything. I didn't get one vibe of incest
see, see,
until that scene.
see, I would agree with you on that. Up until that point, it is just like I'm obsessed with like no one touches my sister, like
Yeah,
I'm like overprotective. But apparently, in well, 'cause we haven't touched upon this yet, but in the because obviously Scarface, this one is a remake or a reboot. We've discussed reboots the better
yeah.
term.
We think reboots
Oh,
better.
it's a reboot of a 1930s film, which basically the core concept's the same, but it's in Prohibition Chicago, and in that film is also based on a book. But in the 30s film, they added the incestual element to the film. And I think if you read the synopsis of that film, I haven't watched it yet, but we probably will get to it. It is actually in the synopsis that his relationship with his sister is like a core like part of the film and why part of his downfall, I believe.
All right.
So they added that into the film, and it isn't in the book. And then Brian De Palma and Oliver Stone, who wrote this, they obviously brought that forward into this film, but maybe they played it down a little bit. So like you do get the hint of it at the
Yeah,
end, but it's not
I feel like
fully throughout the
maybe
film.
it was played down for the time, but also I don't think like the reason. I think another reason, other than being uncomfortable, obviously just because it's the topic of incest, I think it was more uncomfortable as well because I didn't think it was in any way that way. And the fact that she was doing it, I think she was just so distraught and so fed up of his power
Hmm.
and control over her that she just went there because she hit
I mean,
rock bottom.
I've got to admit, like that this, like the element that we're talking about, I've watched it a million times, and it never really occurred to me that that was that theme.
His
But
intent, yeah.
when we were obviously after we watched the film, and I'm looking up things, and I'm thinking like, little bits to talk about in the film, and it, apparently it was meant to like be hinted at that way as a result of the original film. So yeah, I guess I think if that is the original intent, then I don't like it. But I never got that vibe until I read that. So maybe I don't like it as part of the perceived perception of the film rather than something that's actually in the film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think his reaction, because afterwards, I feel like he does sort of hit Earth a bit, and that's why, and before he sticks his head in the powder, I think he comes to realize what he did, and I think that it's not he doesn't say it, but the way he acts and the way he responds and the way he says, Manny's name and his sister, I feel like he immediately regrets that. He immediately, because it was the heat of the moment and the drugs and everything building up him, he
Yeah, and
sort of
he's just an
reacted in a
aggressive guy,
snapshot.
isn't he?
But I think in the film, you do even see him realize he would have wanted his sister to be with Manny, and he would have been happy with that. and I think he just says that to her, and the way he acts on his own, I feel like, and that's what makes me think it wasn't an ancestral thing at all from his character's point of view, because and it was just more power control and protection of his sister, because only after he gone too far and couldn't put it back, and then his brother in arms, that he really would have actually been happy. And I think the way she says, we were going to surprise you, because they got married and they were going to surprise him with telling him, which makes me think they think obviously he was always in control, but if they were going to surprise him with it, they thought he was going to be happy with it. And the fact that when he answers the door and he sees him and sees her, you don't see Manny and his sister Gina like immediately shit themselves. I was expecting him to open the door, see Tony, and go, "Ah, fuck," like shit himself. But he stayed smiling. He was happy. It was as if
because he thought Tony would be happy for him.
Yeah. So that's why if it was ancestral, you think Manny definitely would know that there was those sort of thoughts from Tony to Gina. That
I don't know, would he? Because it'd be like a repressed thing.
To be that close as they were. So I don't know that reaction and the way those characters acted around it. I don't think, as characters person, he had those thoughts. I can see why in the moment after the horrificness of what happens, why Gina does what she does. Not because she thinks he is, just she's trying to get at him. She's angry. She's upset, and
I think when we eventually get round to the 30s version, we'll probably, when we do a podcast on that one, we'll probably have a better mindset talking about this topic, because we'll have seen how it was intended in the 30s one, and we'll know if it was that way or not because of how it was in the original. Because at the moment, we're theorizing, is that part of the character's motives or not, or is it just what the perception
even
is
if
of
it is in the other film, I don't think it is in this film, and that's why, like when you first said remake, I was like, I don't think it is. We settled a reboot. Like, it's the same story and theme, but it's
just
its
completely different
own
setting
thing in its own way. And you mentioned it to Apes, which we've already done. Like the reboot films, similar concepts, but they're way off their own meaning.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's how I see it. So even if the 30s film is obviously hinting at that, I just don't think this film does.
So now on to my next question is, obviously that was made in the 30s, this version made in the 80s. Could our version be made now and be anywhere near as interesting, or maybe not iconic, because I feel like iconic films are not really that. There's not many iconic films these days, if we're being truthful. But could it be a worthwhile version? Do you think? Could it be done?
Again, I don't think a remake could be done at all.
Well,
Like this film
a reboot
is so iconic, and this film. That's the thing. I think because the 30s one clearly isn't as big as this one, it would be even harder to do. And I don't think this film feels outdated either. So I feel like it's not needed yet because it doesn't feel that far from reality.
I would say that this film or this story has actually been rebooted multiple times these days, but usually in a TV show format.
Yeah.
You think, like, maybe not on a fully similar level, but Breaking Bad, it's the same sort of concept. But obviously it's less about money, it's about power, and it's less about the American dream. It's just he wants to have power over everyone, but it is the rise and fall of Walter White, and there's plenty of others.
It's definitely got that never forever impact on film. It's gonna be impossible to not have it influence every future creator and writer and director. Like, it's so big, so iconic that it will always have that link.
I tell you what, I think would
be come after
an interesting version of this film, like if they were to like redo something like this would be, again, we're gonna bring it back to like GTA. But I reckon GTA 4 with Nico Bellic could be like it's got that
Well,
immigrant vibe to it, coming to New
well, that's
York.
what I was gonna say to you next. Is like, because the modern day is so different to the way it was in the 80s. Like, how would they go to do it? Would it be like a corporate one? And like, is it like I'm getting like Succession? Would it be like coming over and trying to take over in a corporate way? You can still be illegal and dodgy in the way your business runs. Is it like the Wire sort of vibes, and it's like a Baltimore
Yeah, there's like
gangs and drugs like that? Or
there's
I don't
multiple ways of
see.
doing it, but
Yeah,
I feel
because
like
it couldn't be the same at all as this one. It would have
I,
to
ju-
be so
I,
different
ju-
just because the world is so different.
like I say, I feel like every version of this story has already been done. You go like Billions or whatever seems as is like the corporate like crime.
Yeah,
Power is like, you know, New York drugs. You've
I
got
think.
Top Boy is English drugs. Like it's all been done really. I don't think you could make it interesting to a viewer like in modern day.
Well, you say that, but yeah, thinking back to the Ricky Gervais podcast, and I can't remember what it is, but I can't remember if it was the 1920s where someone said all that there has been can be invented has been invented. Like, and they were saying that back then they thought everything that could be invented has been invented,
Yeah,
and
you're
I reckon
right.
that's probably the same case with this.
You're
But
right,
I
but
know what you mean.
also like I you know what it comes down to is what
Yeah.
I was saying. Like Brian De Palma and Al Pacino make this film what it is, and you
Yes.
would really have to fucking nail that aspect if you were to redo this now. You'd need to have the right director and just that
I
main
don't think
character.
it's possible. I don't think
I
you can
can't.
remake or reboot it. It would be the only way it could be successful. Like, if it tried to do it and called itself Scarface, then it wouldn't work. It would clearly be a cash grab and they're just using the name. And any true reboot or spiritual successor, I think, would be the best way. Is the only way it could
Well,
succeed. Is something that stands in its own right but is influenced by Scarface.
well, I mean,
I
you
think
say
it's
that, but
impossible to successfully
obviously
reboot a remake.
they redid it once. It was
Yeah, but
30s to
that
the
was
80s.
again the 30s to the 80s. That's a 50-year gap.
There's a
That's
50-year
and
gap to the 83 now.
so it's so different to what it was then. Like, I don't think this film is the same as that film, and I don't think if it was remade now, that film would be the same as this film. So
Yeah,
therefore, it shouldn't
but
be called Scarface. And I don't think Scarface in the 30s, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the Scarface film in the 30s was as big or iconic as this film. So maybe it was
well,
easier to
that
do.
that that this comes to my next point, which we were going to talk about some trivia, and this film was actually like not very successful at all when this game came out, and I believe it was
Surprises me.
the 16th most like successful film of the year at the time, and actually, where was it? I read it somewhere. Just uh, let's see. Here we go. Scarface was actually not a huge success at first. These days, Scarface is a cult classic. At the time, though, it was not a success. With a budget of somewhere between 23 and 37 million, the film only made 66 million worldwide, so it only
Blimey.
just made a profit.
Yeah.
So, again, it's one of those films. There's plenty of these films as well over time that it became more iconic as the decades went on, and you could probably say, I mean, let's be honest, not many people now are willing to watch a film from 90 years ago, which would be the 1932 film.
Yeah.
So you never know. You could say if they made a film in 2025, that by 2050, that could just be as iconic as this one. You never know, do you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. But I think because of how big and iconic this one is,
Like I say, it would
that
have to be a special duo with like a
it'll be
director
more
and
of a
actor.
spiritual success. Yeah. But my problem is if like because of the way the world is right now, anything that gets to use that title, Scarface, it's mostly going to be a cash grab. you would hope it would be a passion project and they get the right people involved. But at the end of the day, I feel like it won't be as good because really it'll be the big company at the top wants money.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Like, unless you actually know the director, you know, like if
Mm-hmm.
like say, who could I name? Like, I said Denny Villeneuve, guy who did Blade Runner and Dune, or Ridley Scott, or you know, like a big name, and you just know like they've got pedigree behind them. Whereas if it was just like some random director that he's maybe made one or two films that might have been a hit or a semi-hit, you'd
Yeah.
sort of know what you're getting into. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like other bits of trivia that I've read though,
Mm-hmm.
is Al Pacino actually was the driving force behind this film. He watched the
Yeah.
original film and he went to his manager and was basically like, I want to make this, like get it done sort of thing.
Yeah, I read that as well. Like he was actually massively involved, and he wasn't just like a hired actor to fit. Oh, he was massively a pushing force in it, which is again why I think it's so iconic and works. And I feel like that would have to be a similar thing for a reboot
Yeah.
successful. It would have to be a passion project of people that go after it rather than it being the big company coming out.
I don't know if you've seen this as well, but I've just seen this, is that Robert De Niro was offered this film before Pacino stepped in.
It wouldn't have been as good. I'm sure it would have been good, and I'm sure he would have done well, but it wouldn't have been.
It would have been a totally different vibe. They wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to make the same
Would
film
have
at
felt
all.
so different. And I think it gives, because I read another bit, and I think that fits into this. Is the scene where he has her in the car early on, and she's trying to make like she has no
Yeah,
interest in
yeah,
him, and she's trying, and he takes the hat and wears the hat, and
yeah,
it makes her laugh. That was literally not scripted. That like he literally just did that a shot, and her reaction was genuine, and she did really well to stay in character, and it fit perfectly. And I feel like yeah,
yeah,
Al
absolutely.
Pacino just felt the vibe of the film, and the film felt the vibe of him, and it's like moments like that made it. And yeah, that's why I feel
Apparently,
it's really, I feel like it's his, yeah, it's his and the director's film. It's just
yeah, apparently Steven Spielberg directed a scene of this film. I'd love to know which scene that was.
really.
Yeah, it says here Steven
Oh yeah, I
Spielberg
read.
was visiting the set, and De Palma was like, you know, do you want to shoot a scene? I'd love to
Yeah,
know what
apparently they
scene
were
that
friends,
was.
and they very regularly visited each other's sets. I remember reading that. Like they did that often. And it says
Yeah,
here, here it says Spielberg was on hand for one of the days of the shooting, for the shooting of the Colombians' initial attack on Tony Montana's house at the end of the film. So De Palma let Spielberg direct the low-angle shot where the attackers first enter the house.
that's cool. I like it when
Interesting.
stuff like that happens. It's
Yeah,
like how
exactly.
when like directors and actors like have cameos on set and stuff just because they're around. I
Yeah.
like that. It's like
Well,
you ever seen you've seen Euro Trip, right? The whole
no,
Scotty doesn't know song. You not seen that?
no.
Never, right?
I'm
So
pretty sure it will ring bells once I take a look. No,
so
no, I haven't seen it. I've heard of it.
so
I've not seen it.
so in Euro Trip, the directors obviously like Euro Trip's like a proper like it's not a highbrow film at all. It's just a cheap teen comedy.
Isn't it like,
But
yeah, like American Pie sort of thing?
yeah, yeah. So what happened with that is they were filming a scene and the director was just like, I wonder if there's any like actors around that we can get to cameo in the film. And Matt Damon was in the city or something at the time, and that's how the iconic "Scotty Doesn't Know" song came about. Because Matt Damon just came in and played a sleazy rock star on the set and made the song.
Wow.
I like with just like little bits like
Yeah.
that where like it's like their own bit of personality enters the film.
Well, that's what I think when films and TV shows where things come up on the spot and spontaneity and trial and error and just trying things out, doing things loads of different ways, just letting everyone explore the characters. So that's when things become its best, and it also then gives you ideas of things down the line.
Absolutely,
Like
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and one thing I read that I really liked, and I think that it adds to why this film feels so loud and extreme and in your face, was that the firearms were equipped with electronic synchronizing devices so that they would only fire when the camera shutter was open. So all the muzzle flashes are really visible and constant and like in your face all the time. And
That's
like, I
cool. I
feel
didn't
like
know that.
that sort of detail and thought, and like it really adds to the film because those scenes are so violent, so loud, so in your face, and the muzzle flashes I feel contribute so much to like the feeling and the action. It's just little things like that that I thought was so cool, and I really, when I read that, I really enjoyed that because I was like, "That's great," because that really did, like that small thing had such a big contribution. I feel,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Though.
but yeah,
So,
it's
final thoughts?
final thoughts. Well, something just did jump to mind because we were talking about things we didn't like about the film, and you mentioned the incest thing, but I never got to say the little thing that I didn't like about the film because
Oh
beforehand, when
yeah.
I was trying to think about something I didn't like about them, I can't really think of one, which sort of made me feel bad in a way because I think this film is incredible and maybe one of the greatest films of all time, and I don't think almost anything wrong with it. But then it isn't probably one of my favorite films of all time, which is weird. But one thing that really annoyed me is Tony Montana's mother.
Right.
And I think it was more obvious to me because of the film Roll, which is a film Rob hasn't seen, and eventually in this podcast we'll spin it about, and I'll show Rob some films that I've seen that he hasn't seen. And the film Goal, I love the film. I'm thinking about it now. That could be one of my desert island films. But anyway, um, the mother of Tony Montana is in that film, and because I knew she was in that film, I knew how old she was, so I had to look it up. And she's like 4 years older than Al Pacino or something. And it
Oh
just
really?
annoyed me. It's like, how can she be his mother? They look, even in the film, they look the same age, similar age. And that was another thing in the film. I was like, how old is he meant to be? Because I feel like he's meant to be a young adult coming over, but he does look older.
Well, how
So
old would he have been? So let's have a look. Because his sister, I think,
I think
is
he's in his
20.
40s. Yeah, I feel like he's meant to be early 20s, but I swear he's like 40s. So when was the
No,
film made?
no, he's not. He's
1983.
not meant to be early 20s because He did talk about him being in the army and all sorts.
Yeah, but you can be in the army and have a gang. I
I
mean,
think.
like 25 to 30, maybe. Like, I think more 23 to 28 is where I would think. I wonder if there's an official. How old is.
I think he is meant to be in his 40s.
How old is. Well, then how old is your mother who looks at. Who's she's in her
Well, I
bloody
mean that's
40s?
just like dodgy casting. Isn't it?
Obviously, the film's played out over a period of time.
That right?
But
Okay,
I'd like to know
so
how old he is when he gets off the boat.
it can be assumed that Tony is in his early to mid 30s.
Yeah, I get the vibe that he was like maybe 25, 28, and seeing his mother be like literally the same age as him, and just because of Goal, knowing that she has to be around the same age as him in real life, that just stuck in my head the whole way throughout the film. And I know that's not a bad thing about the film;
Yeah.
it
So,
doesn't make me feel
someone
bad. It
asked
just
this
annoyed me.
from someone asked this in 2020 on Reddit actually. So let's see what people said.
Oh, I just found something. Yeah.
He was supposed to be in his mid 30s. I read it in a magazine VHS box way back in the day. He was 37 when the film was made, so mid 30s would be about right, and it would
I,
fit, I think, because I mean, if you think
I
like
disagree.
like
Rob,
you
I'm fighting it.
like,
Bring it, world.
like you
I
think
don't
like
care. You can bring
my
Al
sister
Pacino. You can
is
bring him
20
and the director
years.
here, and I'll fight.
My sister's 20 years younger than me. Remember?
Yeah, my youngest brother is 16, 17 years younger than me.
So I mean, it's not unheard of, is it? But the issue
I'm
obviously is
talking
the
about him
mother.
and his mother, not the
Yes, but
sister.
yeah, but the mother is just dodgy casting.
I don't know. It's not that big a deal. It just annoyed me in the film
They
because
probably
I
just
was
say
excited
that
to see the
the
mother because
mother
of
was
Goal.
probably paid like fucking $10 because no one knew who she was.
What are you on about? She's in Goal. She's an icon.
She was in Goal fucking 20 years later. Yeah, it might have had a career by then.
Well, I'm joking, mate. Goal is not the most iconic film. I think it's got its cult following and those that love football in the film.
Well,
Love
yeah,
it.
but I mean,
But
20 years on, she might have starred in a few like TV movies. She might have been a
I'm
nobody
just
back
saying,
in
if
the
she was
day.
in Goal, she probably would have turned down Scarface because Goal was too highbrow.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
Uh,
you watching Goal because just to see it in terms of a football film. For a football film, it's brilliant.
oh,
And
I
it has
mean,
similar stories. It's similar to this. It's got like the American dream, kind of, but he goes because originally he's an
I
immigrant
feel
to
the same
America.
about There's Only One Jimmy Grimble, football wise. That's my football film. I love that film.
I haven't seen that. It's a
Well,
machine.
that'll be
We'll swap football
the
films.
football, yeah, the football exchange.
Okay, well that'll come up. Oh
Uh,
man,
well,
how the
on that
fuck we get
note,
onto this shit?
I don't know, but on that note, I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
So I think it's time for you to say your iconic line.
I don't know now if you're leading to.
Well, I mean, you've ruined it
I
now,
don't know if
but
you want me to quote the film or you want me to say what we always say at the end.
well, you know, it's the thing you say at the end every time. You know, it's your iconic
Okay,
line.
I don't know if you're saying iconic because the whole reason, like this film was
I'm
always in
not.
my mind because of the
I
line.
don't think you're Tony Montana, do I? You've
No,
got
but
your
I
line.
don't know if you just wanted me to quote Tony Montana. What do you mean you got our line?
You've got your
It's a
line that you
lie. It's
say.
not like we fabricated this. This just came naturally from
Yeah,
our old
exactly.
days. People might know us from a brief spell on YouTube with football manager videos, and it developed naturally for a joke with our friends. So it's like a fabricated line. Don't make it sound like just like off the production line, man. But yeah, God, where is this going? But
I don't know. I
I
don't
get
know
what
where.
you want, and then what everyone
I
wants, and what
don't know where
Lloyd
you've
wants.
gone with
So
this.
we'll just pretend this didn't happen, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
I genuinely didn't know if you wanted me to like make an Al Pacino thing. I didn't know you were going to say hello to my little friend.